What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with AltCoin Buzz. So today we're going to make a video to talk about some trading guidelines and some trading tips that have been proven useful over time for me and others. So thank you to everyone who's been liking these videos. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to this channel and supports this channel with feedback and commentary. So shout out to all you guys. We don't say it enough, but thank you to everyone. I also would like people in the comments below to share their tips with others in the community in the comments below on this video. Now, because the market is continually evolving and we have to stay up to date, as someone said, January 8th, when we hit the all-time high of $820 billion, $830 billion in market capitalization, feels like it was like 6 months ago. It feels like it was ages ago. But in reality, it wasn't even but 2 to 3 weeks ago. So we've come a long way, but some things remain the same. But then there's also evolution that takes place, and we must stay up to date with that. That's why we do make these videos consistently. So first thing is definitely always be flexible with everything you do. Now, one of the things that people typically get caught up in, especially as they move from novice investor newbie to intermediate, is technical analysis. So in this case, here we have AltCoin Buzz IO. You can follow us on Twitter, but me personally, Blockchain J, I put this out there about this. The word coming out of technical analysis world is Bitcoin hitting $8,000 will move the market out of its funk. That is where the level of support is to swing the market. Your thoughts? So I put this out there because people have identified the level of support in Bitcoin's chart to be around about the $8,000 range. If we look at that $8,000 range, you'll find that around here on the support chart. And you can see we've been inching ever closer to that after we peeled back off the all-time high. So people who read the charts, they find this as the next level of support because that's where Bitcoin really ran sideways. So the market ran sideways here. That's the level of support that people claim using technical analysis. Some people say, why do we need to hit $10,000 or $8,000 in order to move this market, right? So TA people, they're stuck on the idea that Bitcoin's going to have to hit $8,000 in order for this thing to start pumping and moving up. The thing with TA that I've always taken issue with is it doesn't take into account the news. It doesn't take into account product development. There's so many different variables that TA does not account for, and that's why I don't typically subscribe to TA as a really important aspect. Although I do mention it because it is worth mentioning, I would say it makes up no more than 30% of my overall strategy in terms of all the other things that I look at. Now, I just touched on the news. Here's a perfect example of how news can move the price of a coin that TA would not be able to pick up on. Let's just look at Nano, formerly known as Roblox, right? So if we just look at the 7-day, you can see Roblox just yesterday was down to $13. But because they rolled out the new the news that they are rebranding from Roblox to Nano, this news drove the price, which you would not have been able to see in technical analysis, right? Here's another bit of news. You guys call it FUD. I think FUD's being overused quite frequently. Many people are like, FUD, FUD, FUD this, FUD this, FUD that, FUD that. FUD, yeah, it is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But just because we know what the word means doesn't mean we just throw it around at everything that we see, right? And I use that because it is overused. Anyone want to disagree with me? Go ahead and drop a comment below and let me know why FUD is not being overused right now. Now, some of the news that's come out, whether it be Warren Buffett, Jamie Dimon, or any bankster or any news media outlet, such as, let's just say Tether, the Tether situation. The Tether situation is driving the price down, but before that, we had other variables that drove the price down. We watched IOTA's price peel back its high when it was announced that they didn't necessarily have a deal with Microsoft, but that deal with Microsoft was what drove it up. Ripple, we watched Ripple surge. We watched South Korea drop the market. We watched China drop the market in the past. and that's just in the recent last 6 to 7 months, right? We've seen various different situations with news. So how can you predict that with TA? So now you see why TA is not the end all. Okay, so I want to put that out there because I know that a lot of you guys are getting into reading charts, and I think if you get too stuck in that, then you know you're not going to have a successful trading strategy. At least that's my overall. I think it's good to know TA, but I don't think it's the end all, right? Another thing that I always say that doesn't typically get mentioned is I like to actually use consciousness. My conscious awareness of where I think or project something will go based on my own intuition, which if you don't feel like you have that intuition to be able to project things, maybe you shouldn't get too into that. But I use my gut feeling or my intuition. There's countless times, even in the historical of this market, where I'll just go out for a walk, and in that walk, I'll get an idea, man. It'll be like Ethereum. I'm like, Ethereum's the bee's knees. And this was, Ethereum at $300. And I'm like, man, Ethereum's like a juggernaut. And I'm like, why didn't I realize that? But just going out on my walk and getting fresh air, I was like, wow, man, Ethereum is like the best investment at that particular time that I saw. And I was like, yeah, sure, there's some coins where I can get 10 to 15 gains, but those are more speculative than a solid investment like Ethereum. And I even actually got that intuition when I first bought, or when we first talked about Verge back when it was well below a penny before it ended up running all the way up into the 20-cent range. I had gotten that intuition. I was like, man, this Verge is ready to roll. Sure enough, we posted that video, and it became apparent that maybe, I think a week later, Verge had ended up rolling out. And that has nothing to do with a YouTuber putting out videos. It could have something to do with just an overall internet interest in a coin. But to one YouTuber, one major news outlet, CNBC, Bloomberg, doesn't typically affect the price, especially when you're up over $100 to $200 million, because I think you'd be giving that YouTuber too much credit, their audience too much credit, in suggesting that their audience is sitting on mounds of money, especially when a coin like Tron, for example, is up over billions of dollars. YouTube as a platform can't even move that price. Most of that, the majority of that investment capital is coming in from whales. So here's the next thing. If you know what the tech world, the whales, the investors, the angel investors, Silicon Valley, Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong, if you know the stuff that they're into, in this case, it's so banks, they really like financial products, right? That's why Ripple's been so successful. Augmented reality, virtual reality, it's very hot right now in Silicon Valley. Like, that's the talk of the town around Facebook and some of these other social media platforms. So if you know that AI and financial services that are financial platforms that are providing services like Ripple for banks are going to be popular because they're going to bring in that big money. It's not the small money, you and me. A lot of people think, oh, it's you and me who move the price. If that was the case, you would have seen Tron go way up because so many people invested. But each one of those people are invested with like $100 to a couple $1,000s at a time. They're not the big players. So when you look at Tron's market cap, for example, and I'm putting this out there because I think it's really important that we really are accurate in how we're assessing this. So this market, this shoot up happened from a lot of big money, not a few thousand here and there. Okay, so you can see it's at 5 cents, but we have tons of people, especially young people who watch YouTube and whatnot. They've jumped into this, but the whole time they were jumping in, every time they were jumping in, this thing just kept going down. What drove this price was big dollars, big money, like whales. And then when it crashed, it was whales. Okay, it wasn't because someone made a YouTube video or someone talked about it on a Reddit forum or someone tweeted about it. Now, it can be possible that some of the biggest names in cryptocurrency, like John McAfee, have been known to move the price up, but that's more than just his Twitter account. That's he's a celebrity, okay? And he's also a McAfee software, so he's more than just a celebrity. He's a tech guy. So when he talks, people typically listen, and that's how he uses his audience of $740,000 to drive up a price. But more than likely, it's not a YouTuber with a whole bunch of millennials watching their channel that have a few $1,000s each time that maybe doesn't even add $1 million into the market. It takes that plus big money, okay? And you can see this is sitting at $3.6 billion. So even $1 million, if $1 million moved into this market cap or moved out of that market cap, 3.621, it wouldn't even be like a splash in the pan, right? Or a 3.623. So that's what I'm saying. Don't get overly exuberant because a YouTuber posts a video about your favorite coin, because if that goes up, it might be just a lucky strike for that YouTuber more than it is that YouTuber having the clout. Now, obviously, if you're in the low range where the market cap is $1 million, then you can maybe really influence the price of that coin at $1 million. A market cap of 1 million, 2 million, anything above 10 million, it's really not going to happen too much. And I'm just putting that out there because I think a lot of you guys give your favorite YouTubers or your favorite big channels a lot of credit in that regards. Those pump and dump groups, that's why you'll notice they only mess with low market cap coins. So that's usually what happens. Now, there's another saying out there: be greedy when others are fearful. Okay, this goes back to, even if you look at the 2008 financial collapse, when I remember this was when I first really started to get an idea into how this could happen. People would say, you know, a lot of people get really rich when the market goes down. And I said, no. I said, well, how do people get rich? You know, because I was naive. I didn't fully understand this because I wasn't working in finance and I wasn't working in business. I was working, as I've said many times, working with the the military. But anyway, so because of that, I was like, how do people get rich when the market goes down? That doesn't make any sense. They're like, well, because people buy things on sale and they just sit on them and wait for them to mature. And I was like, oh man, 2 years, that's not a very long time. But then when you're actually going through that process of waiting 2 years, like we talked about earlier in the video, that 3 weeks feels like it's been 6 months. So when you're holding on to an investment, you're kind of on the edge of your seat, you're biting your nails and you're like, oh man, is this thing ever going to mature? But yeah, you do have to give it time, sometimes 1 to 2 years, 3 years. But if you're just tracking it day to day and you're like watching the price of your home, let's say you bought a house in the financial collapse, you might have bought it at I don't know, maybe it might have had a valuation of $300,000, right? But because the housing market collapsed, the bubble pops, you buy that house for $130,000. Then 6 months later, the market hasn't rebounded. You get a county assessment that says the house is worth now $115,000, right? So you're like, oh, goodness gracious, man, this house is going down in value even though I thought I got it on a steal. You mean that wasn't the bottom? Same thing can happen with cryptocurrency or even stocks. So with that being said, but now here in 2018, you ask that same person who bought that house, I don't know, in Temecula, California, now that house is back up to, it's pretty much rebounded back to that $300,000 price point, right? But they had to wait for it to mature. So that's kind of where that saying comes from: be greedy when others are fearful. So this is also a really important point. Risk only what you can afford to lose. So if you don't want to be that person who's having to constantly look at the price day in, day out, which I do. I look at the price day in, day out because I'm tracking the market with you guys. I'm not saying don't do that, but if I have all my money and equity tied up in liquidity and all that into the cryptocurrency market, man, it can be pretty stressful. Like, you might end up not eating. You might only eat one meal a day and be really stressed out, right? You might have that knot in it feels like you swallowed a rock, right? So don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out is sometimes on this channel, we've done these, what we call speculative gambles, okay? Now, I talked about this in the podcast last night, and I do this from time to time, okay? For example, if you go to Las Vegas, Are you going to go put all your life savings into Las Vegas's slot machines? No. A gamble is just that. It means that the odds of that pulling out are very low. So I will, if I've had a very successful 2 weeks, which I've had in cryptocurrency multiple different times, I might have extra coins just laying around. I might send a Litecoin to my sister to get her involved in cryptocurrency, or to my friend. I might just send them a fraction of a Bitcoin because I've had a successful week. And I'll be like, hey, welcome to the market. Here's your first Bitcoin. See if you can grow it on your own. Plant the seed and grow it. Pay attention to the market and try and grow it. Because I've had a successful week. Now with that, I might have an extra Litecoin laying around, or a fraction of a Litecoin, or a fraction of a Bitcoin laying around, and I'll put it into a highly speculative coin, or maybe 3 or 4. Like Matt was saying in that podcast, Silicon Valley investors will invest in 99 startups with that hope that only one of them becomes the next Snapchat or the next Facebook. So I do that, but it's usually with just about literally 1% of what I have invested. So being that I have less than $100,000 in the market, I would not put any more than $1,000. Well, this was back when the market was high. Now it's pulled back. We've all kind of watched our bank accounts kind of come down, but our trading portfolios come down. But it would never have been more than $1,000 that I ever invested in any sort of speculative coin like that. So I put that out there because I think it's really important for you guys to understand. If you do jump into a gamble like that, it shouldn't be you shouldn't put 50% or 25% or 20% of your actual net worth into these gambles. You don't go to the casino and try and make money or earn money. It's usually like, well, I'll put this $5 in the slot machine and see what happens. Oh, okay, I lost my $5. I'm done. You don't keep putting $5 in there and then say, well, I'm going to go pull out another $500 and try and pump this thing up again and try and win that one lucky strike, because then that just becomes a cycle that never ends, that's not going to be leading to a group of prosperity. But if you do choose to participate in something like that, try to make sure it's around 1% of the gamble. That's just my recommendation. I also like the idea of taking profit. Okay? I've stressed that quite a few times. I think it's important that we take profit. Instead of trying to be too greedy, we're happy with our 3, 5, 10 times gains if they come. And that leads me to my next point. You have your core position and your trading position, which we've talked about several times on this channel. Your core position is your long-term hold, your 2 to 3 year hold. Your trading position is maybe something that when it goes up 3 to 5 times gains, you'll take your profit on that, maybe cash it out back into fiat, put it back in the bank, and then just use house money, something like that, right? So you have that. Now, I'm going to go over some of these other articles that have been put out, just so you can see what some of the other professionals have talked about on these websites. You have why technical analysis doesn't work. You can check that out on Seeking Alpha. You can come on to Forbes and see where they talk about technical analysis being fundamentally flawed. And you can see here their points. So that was just kind of leading into some of the thoughts that I was having about TA not necessarily being the best way to go about grading the market. And then you have some other tips here from Daniel's Trading. They talk about become fluent in technical analysis. So we've talked about that, but that's just 1 of 10, right? Adopt a sustainable pace. Stay aware of news items. We talked about that. Implement stop losses. We didn't really talk about that, but you can come on here and read that. I'm not going to go, this video is getting long, so I'm not going to read up on all that. Use prudent leverage. So using leverage. And then you have, it said 10, right? Is this not 10? Oh, that's 5. So anyways, yeah, this is on Daniel's Trading. But I think we really touched on a lot of points in here. And I'd like to hear some of your keys to successful investment strategy for the long haul, maybe even a little bit in the short term. Here's some right here. Laying the foundation. This is for Bitcoin, because cryptocurrency and stock trading are completely different in the sense that the cryptocurrency market is a lot more volatile than stocks. So you have support and resistance in the TA. And this article is on CoinDesk if you wanted to evaluate it. So anyways, guys, thank you to everyone who's been subscribing to us on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter. We have AltCoin Buzz.io. Thank you to everyone who subscribed to this channel, AltCoin Buzz. Let us know what kind of videos you'd like from us. Let me know what kind of videos you'd like from me. And go ahead and hit that bell next to the subscribe button to get notified every time we drop videos like this, and we'll see you all next time.